Today we're going to be unboxing the Maxfind Max5 electric skateboard. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Ronan, I make vlogs and I make product and tech reviews. And in today's video, we're going to be unboxing a brand new electric skateboard. So in this box, I have the Maxfind Max5 electric skateboard. But first thing I want to do is I want to get this box down onto the floor so we have a bit more space, and then we can open it all up and see exactly what everything is like in here. And just a quick disclaimer, I didn't pay any money for this electric skateboard. Maxfind contacted me a couple of weeks ago and asked me if I was interested in unboxing and reviewing one of these boards here on my channel, and I said yes. So they have sent this to me for review purposes. Okay, so I've just come down onto the floor to open up this box, and I have got the world's smallest Swiss Army knife to do it. Okay, so this is the Maxfind Max5. So it doesn't come in like traditional packaging. This comes with this kind of like bubble wrap style plastic all around it, and it's just in the cardboard box that you saw there. So this bit was over the top of it. It kind of came off as I was trying to pull it out of the box. So we'll just go and open the rest of this now. So this is the Maxfind Max5. Okay, so we've got like a little kind of like Maxfind toolbox here. And then in here we just have some instructions, and it just gives you all the specs of the Max5. And our charger. This is actually an EU plug, which we don't use here in Ireland. We use a UK plug here in Ireland, but that's fine. I have plenty of cables that I can plug into this to charge this board. We have a USB cable to charge our remote, and it is micro USB on this end and USB type A on this end. So it's not a USB-C charger, it's the older type of connection. We have a very small Allen key, and then we have the standard skate tool. So I have a lot of these. I've gotten a skate tool like this with every single electric skateboard I've ever used. And then lastly, in the toolbox, we have the remote. There's no screen on this remote. It just has a power on and off button, and this button here has what looks like a little gear stick on it. So it's obviously to set your different speed modes. But what's actually really nice about this remote, which is actually different to any other remote I've ever seen previously, is it has a little switch here for forwards and backwards. So this board has a reverse gear, but what's cool about this board is it has a physical switch so you know which gear you're in. There's a throttle wheel, press this forward to accelerate, and you pull it back to brake. Okay, so we just go and we have a look at the actual board itself now. This is the board here. If I just turn this over, so you can see the board isn't made out of wood. The deck here is actually made of a fiberglass composite. So the idea here is that it's supposed to be a bit more sustainable than a regular board by not needing to cut down trees and that kind of a thing. The grip tape here doesn't feel like standard grip tape either. It doesn't feel as rough or as coarse as what I'm used to with any of my other boards. Also, it feels like it's kind of like a rubber as opposed to like the regular kind of sandpapery feel that you get with grip tape. And then on the front wheels here, we have a standard polyurethane wheel. There's also this sticker that says made in China. It has the Maxfind website here, and then this is a 78A durometer, so it's kind of soft. And then if we just turn the board over, so you can see this is the battery compartment here, and this is the ESC compartment here. So you can see this is the charge port, and this is where the board powers on. So that's the board set to its slowest mode. That's it at its next mode. And that seems to be the board at its highest mode. So this board is actually a single motor board. So there's one motor in this wheel here, and these three wheels are all standard skateboard wheels. So you can see we just get drive from this one wheel here. So I'm just gonna go and charge this board up now so that I can take it for a spin and kind of give you guys my thoughts on what this board is actually like to use. But while we're waiting for that, I just kind of want to run through some of the specs on this board. So Maxfind say that this board has a top speed of 24 miles per hour or 38 kilometers per hour. They say that the board also has a range of 15 to 21 miles. So that's 25 to 35 kilometers. So kind of overall range will be determined heavily by a number of factors like road conditions, rider weight, and rider style. Generally, I tend to be a more aggressive rider with these boards, so I tend to use them in their fastest mode, and I generally tend not to get as much range as is usually advertised when I use my boards. That's totally normal, and that's something that I've come to expect. There are also 3 different variations of this board that Maxfind sell. So the most sort of basic model, which is the model that I have here, is the Max5 single motor, and that costs $378.32. Then there's the Max5 Pro, which is a dual motor version of this board, and that costs $473.14. And then there's the Max5 Pro long range. Now I don't actually have details on what the long range version is, but the price of the long range version is $567.96. Initially, if we start with the remote is very familiar to me and I quite like it. Texture on the plastic is it's kind of like a hard plastic. It feels like it's quite durable, and then there's no screen, so you don't get any kind of like readout or indication of what kind of speed you're doing or what kind of like mileage you're getting out of the board. Next up, I need to talk about this deck. So this is the composite fiberglass deck that Maxfind use. So they've gone in a very different direction to any other boards that I've used previously or that I've even seen. It kind of has a plastic feel, even though they say it's fiberglass. The trucks here are a Maxfind branded truck, and they have kind of like a rough texture to them, but they are metal. Clearly this deck is the same deck that you get with the Max5 Pro, which is the dual motor version. They just, like you can see the screw holes are here for the cable from the ESC into the second motor, but that's just not on this version of the board that I have here. And again, if I flip this over, immediately, like when you rub this, it doesn't kind of like destroy your hands the way regular grip tape does. So it means like if this like brushes off your clothes or anything like that, not gonna ruin your clothes, which is really, really nice. And then I'm just gonna take this off. And then if we just take this packaging out of here, so the board actually is very flexy, and it's much more flexy than I expected it to be. Like I said, the only thing left to do with this board now is to charge it up so we can kind of take it out for a proper spin and see exactly what the performance is like. So I've come down to Waterstown Park to try out the board, and this is the park that I've tried out all my other boards in previously. So this will be a really good indicator to see how this board stacks up. Okay, so I've just left the car park and come up the big hill here. So it's just this big hill here that I've come up, and the board is really smooth. It's surprisingly comfortable, but what I felt initially was when I was hitting the brakes that I didn't feel like I had kind of the braking power that I'm used to. And then the second thing is just coming up the hill, just before I got to the very top, the board didn't actually have enough power to get me up the hill. But yeah, so far the board is interesting. Like definitely it has good takeoff power, and surprisingly good takeoff power for a board that only has one motor. But I would have liked a bit more braking power. Like I'm currently on the brakes fully and I feel like I'm almost freewheeling. Now I am freewheeling, and yes, the brakes are really soft on this board. And now I'm currently flat out up this hill, and this hill isn't as severe, but definitely it loses a lot of that power. One other thing just to quickly mention about the board in its current setting is I have the board set to its fastest mode, and just the very sort of top section of this hill here is just too steep for this board to get up, but it actually has a surprising amount of power for a board with just one motor. The other thing then that I don't like about the fact that it only has one motor is when you go to brake, the brakes are very soft. Like, it almost feels like they're not there, and I don't really like that so much. But otherwise, yeah, the board really feels like very smooth, very easy to use. And I think if I was somebody who'd never ridden an electric skateboard before, I do feel like this would be quite an easy board just to get to grips with. Yeah, so anytime there's sort of like an uphill section, this board isn't managing it here in this park that I'm in. If you were just on kind of like flat roads, this would be a handy board to cruise on. And then when you're going downhill, it cruises quite nicely. But in terms of just using this board and getting to grips with this board, it definitely feels very basic. And I do think a lot of that is down to the fact that it only has one motor. I think if you had the dual motor option, you'd probably have considerably more power on your takeoff, and more crucially, you'd have probably more severe brakes, which is something that I'd like. So my takeaways on the board so far are that it's really comfortable to cruise on. The deck is really nice. The only thing I feel about this board is just the lack of braking power on these downhills, and then the fact that if I was coming the opposite direction, this board wouldn't actually get up this hill. I feel like if it just had a little bit more power, it would actually be a lovely board to use. Because it's all sealed, I also think it would actually naturally have really good weather sealing because it's a fiberglass deck. So I think in terms of using it in kind of poor Irish weather, where it's very damp or very wet, I think this board would probably hold up much better than some of my other boards. But yeah, just every time I come to any kind of a hill, like I'm pushing it up a little hill now, barely up a hill, and we're stopped. And the grip tape as well, like even though it doesn't feel that rough or that coarse when you rub it with your hands, like I'm locked in here, you know, my feet aren't going anywhere. So it's really nice to use from that point of view. And like I'm on a surface that's like, it's quite flat, but the actual kind of road surface, I guess, is a little bumpy in parts. But actually, the board is really nice to use on that. Like, it's absorbing the vibrations well. I'm back home after trying out the board, and having used the Maxfind Max5 for a little while now, I have some thoughts about it. I wouldn't be recommending this board to somebody who wants to get it as a proper sort of commuter tool, but if you're somebody who is just looking to get an electric skateboard purely for fun, to use in the park, that kind of a thing, or if you're looking to get it for a child or something like that, I actually think this is a really good skateboard for that point of view. I don't feel like the Maxfind Max5, the version that I have here at least, has the power to sort of safely get me from my house into the office and back home again on proper roads where you're like sharing the roads with other road users like cars and bikes and scooters and that kind of thing. It didn't have an overwhelming top speed. I never really felt like I was out of control or that I was even close to the limits of what I'm used to. And finally, the last thing that kind of really puts me off using this as a proper commuter vehicle is the lack of braking power. Like, if you are on a downhill slope and you slam on the brakes full throttle, initially it doesn't feel like there's anything happening at all, and I really didn't like that. But I do want to talk about the things that I really liked about the Max5. So first of all, the build quality on it is really solid, and when I heard that it had a fiberglass composite deck, my gut instinct told me that I wasn't going to like it as much as a regular wooden deck like I have on all my other skateboards. However, what I actually found when I was using the board is that that deck is really comfortable. It's a super flexy deck. It absorbs a lot of the road vibrations and that kind of thing that you get when you're on the road. So in terms of comfort, like, it's 10 out of 10 for that. It's really good. Second thing I like about this board is the price. The Maxfind Max5 is a super affordable board, and I think if somebody was thinking about getting an electric skateboard for purely recreational uses, I would definitely say have a look at the Maxfind Max5. But for me, for now, the kind of base level Maxfind Max5, it's not a board that I can see myself using again, but that's not to say that it's not without its merits or value. Okay, so that is all I kind of have to say about the Maxfind Max5 for now. So I'm going to leave this video here. I hope you've liked it. If you do, please give it a big thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video.